Hello friends, my name is Aubrey. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to have you here with me today. So today we are going to do another list of books that I think deserve more love. Specifically, we're going to talk about fantasy books today. And just like with my last two Underhyped books videos, I'm specifically talking about books that I don't think get enough attention on booktube. So that is the platform that I am most familiar with when it comes to engaging with bookish content, although I do have some people that I follow on Instagram. And so these are books that, from what I have seen, not a lot of people really talk about. Some of these have been discussed some by certain people who are, like me, trying to get more people to read these. But in my opinion, I think that these deserve a lot more attention on booktube specifically than they're getting. So I have 5 fantasy books here to discuss with you today, and we have kind of a mixture of subgenres. So we have a romantic fantasy, or a romantasy that we're going to start with. Then I have a middle grade series, some adult fantasy, one that's a bit darker and grimmer, and I have an indie published fantasy that is a very slow burn character focused story. So little bit of variety, so hopefully you'll be able to find at least something that interests you. So we're going to start, as I said, with the romantasy, and that is A Fragile Enchantment by Allison Saft. This book is so lovely. It is also very, very character focused, and the story is very much focused on the romance between our two main characters and on their relationships with others, the relationships that they're forming. While it has at the same time a side or background plot dealing with some political unrest in the kingdom. So in this story we follow, oh no, I don't remember how to pronounce her name, Neve? I think that's how you say it. I don't remember if that's correct. But we follow Neve, I'll put the spelling down here, who has recently come into the kingdom of Avaland because she has been hired to be the royal tailor. So Neve possesses this ability, this gift that she was born with, where she can actually sew emotions into fabric. And this gift does take a little bit of her away every time she uses it. So it is both a gift and a curse. And so Neve only uses this ability when she needs to, or when she feels like it's going to be helpful. But she has been hired to be the new tailor for the royal family, just in time for the second prince's wedding. So our second prince, Kit, has been entered into an arranged marriage with a princess from a neighboring kingdom. And he is expected to marry her to form like a tie, some sort of like union, peace treaty, something between their two nations. And this is really important because there is, as I said, some political unrest going on. His father, the king, is currently very ill and is not running the kingdom. That falls to his older brother, who is serving as the prince regent. But there is some tension between the people of Avaland and the people of, oh no, what is the other area called? Mackland, or Mockland, where Neve is from. It's very, very much inspired by, like, England and Scotland, I would say. And there's a lot of unrest because while Avaland technically is in charge of Mackland, and a lot of the Macklish people have come into Avaland to work, they feel that they are not paid very well, that they're not respected, that they're not treated well. So there is like definitely some political tension around this sort of like class system that is kind of developed. So Neve arrives in Avaland at the royal palace and meets the two princes and is instructed to work on all of the clothes that are needed for Kit's engagement and then wedding. And you can, I'm sure, guess what's going to happen from there, since this is a romance. But I really, really enjoyed this book. I think that the writing is very beautiful. The magic system in here is a very soft magic system in that there are not all these like hard set rules, but different characters from particular bloodlines are born with gifts, these magical abilities that they can use, like Neve's, and the Avlish royal family is one such bloodline. So there is this sense of like magic that's just kind of like permeating the entire story, and these abilities that these people have. But like I said, it is very, very much character focused on Neve and her trying to reconcile her desires and what she wants out of life with her family's expectations, and this tension between these two groups of people, as well as her own sense of self-worth. She struggles a lot with anxiety and this sense that she is not good enough, that she is not fulfilling others' expectations of her. And it's stuff that I think is just very relatable, because I think that we often, just in general, feel like what we're doing isn't enough. Like anybody, especially who has perfectionist tendencies, will relate to Neve as I did in this book. And while my family is much more supportive of me than hers is of her, I still feel like just the world in general, we get this sense that we are not enough, that we are not doing enough, that we on our own, we have to prove ourselves or do more to be worth what we have or what we're doing. And so that's something that she struggles with a lot in here, and I really found it very interesting to see her conversations with others and the way that others recognize these behaviors in her. And it's really, really good. I really liked it. I thought that the descriptions of the locations were so lovely and lush and beautiful. I love the relationships that form in here, both romantic and platonic. And I think that this is also a really, really great book for the spring, because it has this sense of like sewing and making clothes and flowers and beautiful architecture in the form of like the royal palace and stuff, and it's just really, really lovely. Not to say that there is not conflict in this book, because there is, but it's a conflict of a sort that is like very, very personal, while also obviously we still have these higher stakes of like one of our main characters is a prince for a kingdom, so he is trying to reconcile his desires for his own life with his responsibility to his kingdom as a member of the royal family, and what is expected of him, and how do you weigh your responsibilities with your happiness on like a scale, right? And it's just really, really lovely. It has a very fairy tale-esque feel to it. And I just really, really enjoyed it. And it's a very recent release. I think it came out maybe last year or the year before. Yeah, it came out last year. And yet I don't really hear anybody talking about this one. And I know that there are a lot of romantasy that are very, very popular. This one is, I feel like, softer than a lot of those, but I really, really enjoy it. It's so beautiful. And this is the Alcrate edition, by the way. But it's just so beautifully done. I love the conversations of self-acceptance and, living your life the way that you wish to, and also conversations of chronic illness in here. And it's so beautiful. There's talk of grief for others and for yourself, and just I really, really love it. There's a lot packed into this one little book, and it's also just such a lovely romance, honestly. Okay, so next I have a middle grade series that I want to recommend, and this has been a series that I have loved since I myself was younger, and that is Chronicles of Ancient Darkness by Michelle Paver. This is book 1, Wolf Brother. So this takes place in like a prehistorical setting before written history was a thing. Very, very Ice Age inspired setting, I would say. And we follow Torak, who at the beginning of the first book, he and his father, who is his only family, are attacked by something. And it kills his father, and Torak is left to fend for himself. However, he soon finds a little wolf cub with whom he bonds, and Torak quickly starts to realize that he can communicate with this cub, who he calls Wolf. Very inventive name, I know. And they bond with one another and become like brothers. And Torak can talk to Wolf, he can understand him, Wolf can understand him back. And they are swiftly swept up into this sort of prophecy surrounding the thing that killed Torak's father. And that's how the series starts. It gets a lot more complicated from there as we learn more about Torak's ability to talk to Wolf and what this means about him, and on like a broader scale. And you learn much more about the world going forward, and different groups of people within it and their motivations and how they're involved in the events that are unfolding. And it's just so fun. And it is a middle grade series. The original series has 6 books in it, but then the author did do a continuation, which I didn't know when I first read this series. So I have only read the first 6. I do really, really want to continue it and to see where Michelle Paver is going to take this story and these characters after the end of the 6th book. But I just love it so much. Wolf and Torak's relationship, if you are the kind of person when you were younger or now who wish that you could talk to animals, then this is definitely a series that you're going to want to read. It's just, I love the way that Wolf is characterized as a person, right? He is a wolf. He is different from Torak and all of the people that they meet and interact with in this series. Because he isn't a human, but he is still a person, and he has a full personality, and he has, you know, desires. And yes, a lot of his things are simplified in certain ways because of instincts and things like that, survival instinct and stuff, but he is a person and he has feelings and emotions, and he cares very much for Torak, just as Torak cares for him. And I love that. As someone who loves animals and really tries to advocate for their personhood, I love that that is how he is portrayed in here. And it's just really, really fun. And the setting is really interesting. As a kid, I thought that it was fascinating to see how people can survive in, you know, places where there is no there are no advanced technologies to help them. You know, they have to kind of survive off of the land and make the things that they need by hand and keep themselves safe and take care of themselves. And a lot of that is portrayed in here. Like if you liked Island of the Blue Dolphins when you were a kid, this has a very similar vibe in that sort of like the people you meet are surviving in the wilderness, and it's just really neat. Like, I learned about snow blindness for the first time from this series, and what that is and how people would try to counteract it. And I never really thought about that before, so I thought that was really cool. And it's so fun, and they, like I said, it really, really expands drastically from book 1 as the series goes forward. But I literally have heard no one ever talk about this. Even people who read a lot of middle grade, I've never heard anyone mention the series, and I just think it's so good and so fun. My mom read it as an adult and loved it, and I, like, still as an adult love it very much. And yes, I'm sure some of that is nostalgia bias, but I really genuinely think it's very, very fun, well written, easy to read because of course it is a middle grade, but it also has a lot of darker aspects that some middle grade kind of shy away from. This one does incorporate them with you know, the villains and the way that what people are willing to do to survive and things of that nature. So I think it's really good. And I just feel like I've never heard anyone anywhere mention the series ever. As a kid growing up, none of my friends had read it. The only person I know who's read it is my mom. I've never heard anyone on booktube talk about it. I've never seen it anywhere on any kind of like recommendations lists or anything. But I think it deserves some attention. I really do. It is older. The first book was published in 2006. So, like I said, from my childhood. But I mean, it's just, so maybe that's why I don't see a lot of people talk about it. But there are so many middle grade stories from when I was a kid that still get attention. This one needs to be one. It needs more people to read it and enjoy it and give it the love that it deserves. Okay, now this next one, I have actually heard some people on booktube talk about it. For example, Petrick loves this series and really, really like tries to get other people to try it, but I still feel like compared to a lot of other fantasy series, this one just doesn't really get its spot in the limelight, and it really deserves it. Especially because the second series by this author, which has released the first book last year, is getting a lot of attention, and I feel like people need to go back and they need to read his first series as well, and that is the Licanius trilogy by James Islington. I love this series so much. It's 3 books. They are all quite large. Book 3 is very large. But it's so good. Oh my gosh. When I tell you I was hooked so quickly, and I've heard other people like Patrick say this, but the ending to this series has one of the best twists I have ever read in a fantasy. It is just incredible. And it's like the moment it clicks for you and the moment you figure out what's going on, you're just gonna lose it. And it involves a certain, I don't know if I want to say trope, but a certain like plot device, maybe trope is the right word, that I only really like done one of 2 ways. And the way that it's done in here is my favorite way that it's done. I can't say anything else without spoiling it. I really, really don't want to give any hints as to what it is. But in this story, we follow 3 main characters. Davian, Wur, and... oh no. What is her name? Asha. Sorry. Davian, Wur, and Asha, who are best friends. They live in a... oh, what is it? Where is it they live? They live at the school that is teaching people how to use their magical abilities. However, you have to pass a certain test, and if you don't pass the test, I can't remember if your abilities are like taken away from you or you're just like kicked out of the school. I think you go through some sort of, yes, you go through some sort of ritual that essentially like binds your abilities, turns you into something different, and you're kind of banished. And Davian has not been able to pass this test. So that's his main fear, is that he is going to have to go through this ritual, that this is going to happen to him. However, he quickly gains something new to worry about, because someone or something attacks the school and kills everyone in it except Davian and Wur, they think. And so they flee and end up going on this journey to try to figure out who attacked the school, why they attacked it. There is maybe a prophecy involved, as there often is. And on the road, they meet a boy who calls himself Caden. And Caden has lost all of his memories. He remembers absolutely nothing from his past, but he does know that he is being accused of something that he doesn't think that he did. Then we have Asha, who wakes up to find that Davian and Wur are missing, and everyone else in the school has been killed except for her. And so I don't want to give too much away, because I really feel like this is a series that you need to discover each of the points going forward, but I will say that there is a lot in here about, there's a lot of war, a lot of epic battles, a lot of really violent scenes, but there's this war that is essentially, I guess you could say it's a holy war, because there are people there is this religion that is the main religion, or the old religion, in this kingdom, that believes in one god, one deity, and then someone named Shemaeloth, who is essentially the devil. Satan has been cast out, locked away in this other place, and works to basically corrupt people, trying to take over the world, do harm and evil and damage where he can. And there is a lot in here that is very, very Christianity coded, which I thought some of the comments that are made in here, because the characters sometimes have discussions about religion, and the comments that they make, they're just so spot on and wonderful. And I wrote so many quotes down from this series that I then talked to people like my pastor at the time about. And they're just, it's so good. The religious commentary in here is beautiful and amazing, and if you're a person who has a lot of questions about religion and Christianity specifically, there are some really good conversations in this series, let me just say. But even aside from that, the actual plot line and the war that is going on and discovering who is behind it and who the villains are and who we can trust and who we can't is so fun. And following Davian and Wur and Caden and Asha, because Caden, I guess, does become another main character, so we have 4 main perspectives, and each of their journeys and their adventures and seeing what is happening to them. And some truly awful stuff happens in this series, but just the twists and turns are crazy. They're so it's so good. As you learn things, I was just gasping and shocked so many times during this series as you learn stuff and as you discover new things with these 4 characters. It's so good. It's so good. There are, I will say, some issues with dialogue sounding a bit forced and stilted at times. The same with description, which it was the author's first ever series. So, it's like the baby series. It's got room to grow as he continues honing his craft as a writer. But those things you do kind of notice them, but they don't make the story any less epic and engaging and wonderful. They don't make you dislike the characters. It's just, be aware of that. There are some places that I personally felt like the dialogue was a little bit forced. It wasn't quite as natural as I think people in these situations would really sound. But I think that other than that, it's so well written. The plotting in here is so intricate and so well done. From what I'm remembering, I don't remember there being any plot holes left open. But it's so good. And there are times that you will get so upset and so sad and angry because of things that are happening to different characters. But it's a war story. That's essentially what it is it's dealing with war and political maneuvering between different kingdoms and different groups of people, and this supernatural entity force that is trying to take over everything, and not everyone even believes that he exists, right? And it's so good. I need more people to read this trilogy because it is so incredibly epic and amazing and heartfelt, and it's just so good. It's so good. Okay, the next one is a book that I read last year. It is only the first in a series, and it is the only one that I've read so far, but I still feel like it deserves to be on this list because of how good this first book is. And that is the Talents trilogy by J.M. Miro. This is the first book, Ordinary Monsters. Y'all, it's so good. Dark Victorian fantasy. I will say this is perfect for fall. I feel like the vibe and the aesthetic and the setting and just everything about it is just perfect for fall, so I would advise that that's the best time to read it. But I don't hear anyone ever talking about this. The first time I heard someone else mention it is when I pointed out the second book in the series at a bookstore. And my brother's girlfriend was like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. I got the first book in the series and I haven't read it yet. And I had to immediately gush to her about how great it is and how she needs to read it immediately. But that's the only time I've ever heard anyone else talk about this. So in this story, we follow a female detective named Alice, I think. It's an Alice. Sorry, I've got too many names in my head right now. I'm pretty sure it's Alice. And she has recently started working for this institute known as the Cairndale Institute in Edinburgh. And this institute's job is they take children who possess abilities known as talents to the school where they will be protected from persecution and trained to use their abilities. So Alice has been sent on a mission with Colton, Frank Colton, who also works for the Institute and is sort of training her, to retrieve 2 children from America. Marlowe, who has the ability to glow and to manipulate flesh, so either to heal or hurt, and Charlie, who has the ability to heal himself from any wound that he sustains. And so they are supposed to go and retrieve these two boys and take them back to the Cairndale Institute. However, there is someone else who is also after these kids, for different reasons. And maybe the Cairndale Institute isn't all that it seems. So Alice finds herself on this journey with these two children who she is quickly growing very protective of, trying to keep them safe, get them to the Institute, make sure that they'll be safe there. And there's a whole host of other characters who we meet in here. And it's so good. It has all of the grimy, grungy, terrible parts of Victorian society and also that time period in America as well. But it also has that really fun aesthetic that you get from that period as well, with the clothing and the architecture and the, just like the Dickensian society. And Alice as a character is so interesting because she's not had a great past, a great childhood, and so she's very defensive and tries to be very, very tough. And yet she is also a good person. And I love the motherhood, like maternal representation in here, because Alice bonds very quickly with Charlie and Marlowe because they are under her protection and she's caring for them. And you really see her start to really act in some ways as a mother figure towards them, even though she knows she's going to have to give them up to the Institute. And it's just, I love it, but also learning about who this mysterious figure who's after these kids is and his past and what connection he has to the other talents and maybe the Institute itself, and learning about the Institute and the secrets that it's hiding. It's so fun. It does have like different time skips where we have chapters that take place in the past and then we come back to the current timeline. And there are some perspective shifts as well where we see sections and chapters from different characters' perspectives. And it's so, so, so good. I ate this up. I'm so excited to read the second book in this series this fall. I am saving it for the fall because I am a mood reader and I do find a certain pleasure in reading books that fit seasons within that season. And like I said, I think the atmosphere in here is perfect for the fall. Just the sense of like fog and rain and gothic sort of feel, and like this institute out on the Scottish moors, and it's just it's so good. It is so good. I, again, don't hear anyone talking about this ever, and they need to, because it's also just beautifully written. Like, the prose in here is just so lovely. I wouldn't say it's super, super, like, extravagant or super flowery or anything like that, but it is so lovely to read and to engage with these characters and to learn about the world as they are, because Alice doesn't know much about the talents and their world, and neither do these two boys. So the three of them are really learning as the story goes, and I love it. I love it so much. And I think the concept of talents is really interesting. As someone who has been a fan of things like the X-Men my whole life, this idea that people are born with these different abilities that then they can use, and they might be similar to someone else's but unique to them and different in different ways, and maybe no one else has the same exact one that they do. And they're trying to learn how to use them. And also this idea, I always find this interesting in stories, this idea of persecution of people who are different from you. I think that is a conversation that I never get tired of seeing in stories, because I think it's so important. And I do wonder how people in the real world would react to someone who is so different from us. And unfortunately, I think that in a lot of cases it wouldn't be a very positive reaction. And so I think it's important to have those conversations, because we see that in ways that are so much more minor than someone who has some sort of ability or some really very, very physical difference. We do see in the real world people who are different, whether physically, mentally, whatever. They don't always get treated well or accepted by others. And I think that it's, again, an important conversation to have, and it's also important to see those people finding acceptance from other characters in stories, and seeing how they are still people. And yes, this is in a fantasy setting with people who have magical abilities, but it applies, right, to all situations where people are ostracized or treated poorly for being different. And it's just a conversation that I just really appreciate, and I think that it's just something I like to see in stories. So anyway, I really, really love this. I'm looking forward to continuing it, but I really want more people to try it because it deserves so much appreciation. And then the last book that I have for you today for this list is an indie published fantasy that I had never heard of until I was in that same used bookstore that I mentioned earlier. And I saw a single copy of it on the shelf. So this bookstore had a used section, and they also had a section where they sold new books, and somehow they had gotten a copy of this that they were selling. And I didn't end up buying it from that bookstore because it was a little expensive, but I was able to get it with a coupon later. But that book is Under the Earth, Over the Sky by Emily McCosh. Again, I had never heard of this until I saw it, and I thought the cover was really intriguing, so I picked it up, read the synopsis, and instantly knew that this is a book for me. But in this book, we follow Iomar, who is the king of the Fae King. And he, one day, is traveling in the human lands on the border of his kingdom, and he finds some humans who have entered into his woods. And they are chasing after a man who has committed a very unspeakable atrocity. And in getting involved in this situation, Iomar ends up walking away with a very young human baby, who he is now responsible for. And he is determined that the best thing to do is to take the baby, make sure that he's safe and cared for and all right, and in the meantime, look for a new home among the humans where he would, again, be safe and well cared for and protected. However, the longer Iomar has this baby, the less willing he is to give him up. And there is a law that you are not supposed to bring humans into the Fae Kingdom because it is bad for them mentally. It actually harms them. But Iomar is breaking his own law. And so we see how he is trying to take care of his new baby, who he names Lore, and protect him and keep him safe and make sure that he stays healthy and integrate him into his society. But also there is something else going on in the background. There is an enemy that in the past caused great devastation in the Fae Kingdoms. And there are signs that maybe this enemy is returning. There is also something very strange going on with Iomar and his abilities. But I loved this story. It is very, very, very slow burn. I figured out one of the main twists, like, before the reveal, but that's okay. I don't think that you're not supposed to. I think that if you don't, that's fine, but if you do, it's just interesting still to see how it unfolds and how Iomar comes to the same conclusion and learns what I have already figured out. But I loved this so much. It was so beautiful, and whimsical is really a great word to describe this world and this story, the whimsy and the magic. And it's just like the way magic is treated in here. Again, it's not a hard magic system. There is a lot of stuff, like there aren't really any rules. I mean, there are some, but there's like not a lot of rules that you see in here. But the way that magic is a part of Iomar's world, it's so just integral to his kingdom and his world and his people, and there's no question of it. There's no explanation for it. You're just kind of thrown in, and you just get to see all of these different magical events occurring, and the way that magic is just intertwined with every aspect of the lives of the Fae, and it's beautifully done. And again, I love the paternal like elements to this, and the representation of being a parent and adoption, which I'm a huge proponent of. I love it so much. And this idea that like, no, this baby was not his biologically, but that doesn't make him any less his baby. It's so beautiful. And again, I think the magic is just something you can't question anything that happens in here. You cannot question it. You just have to accept it and you just have to roll with it. And that makes it so much more enjoyable than trying to figure out how everything works, because you won't. Just accept it and just look at it as this place of untamed, raw magic that you just revel in, like Ayamar and his people do, and you will love it. And again, very slow burn, very, very, very character focused on Ayamar and his struggles personally, his becoming a father, his issues with his self-worth and being able to ask for help even when he is the king and he's supposed to be the most powerful of all of them, and like coming to terms with the fact that that's okay. And just the story, it, like I said, it is very character focused, but there is a plot, and it has a lot of just, it's just lovely. And it does say something in here that I'm not going to explain, but it does say something in here about misunderstandings and miscommunication in a way, not like in a romantic relationship sense, but just like in general. Yeah, it's beautiful and wonderful. And also, let me just show you, because I did not realize when I hauled this book, but if you take the dust jacket off, look at that. It also has illustrations, so each section is split like by the seasons, and at the beginning of each section we have an illustration, and we have a different chapter header illustration for each of those sections of the story. But it's wonderful. There are some time skips in here, so do be aware of that. Time is a little bit wobbly in the Fae Kingdom. But yeah, it's wonderful. And again, literally, I've heard no one talk about this at all. I had never heard of it. I'd never seen it. I still, even after having gotten it and being aware that it exists, still nobody talks about it. So it's not just a matter of me just being unaware and just not noticing. I've never heard of this before, ever, from anyone. But it's so beautiful and slow and lovely and whimsical, and just, I just love it so much. So people need to read this, because this author deserves recognition for this, and also I want her to write more things for me to read. Okay, so those are 5 fantasy books or series that I think are just severely and criminally underhyped on booktube. They need so much more love. So any person who I can get to read any of these, I will take that as an accomplishment, as a win, and it will make me so happy. But yeah, that's all that I have for you guys today. I really like doing these lists. I hope that you have found something here that you are interested in and excited to read. If you do check any of these out, please let me know, because I want to hear what you think of them. Or if you've read any of these, like, please hype them up in the comments if you would like. Or let me know your thoughts. Just please, as always, keep all comments spoiler free. Or if you have any books that you would like to add onto this list, fantasy books or series that you think are just very, very underhyped. It doesn't have to just be on booktube. It can be like this one, books that you just don't really ever hear anybody talking about. Please leave them in the comments, because I love finding hidden gems. And even though my TBR is already astronomically large, there's always room for more, right, to add on to it. So please leave your recommendations for fantasy books and series that you think are underhyped in the comments. If you would like to leave an emoji, let's do a little mushroom emoji for my little mushroom earrings, or you can do a tree emoji. I have my Protect Our Forests shirt on featuring Treebeard and Merry & Pippin. So if you want to leave like a mushroom or a tree or some combination thereof in the comments, we'll have a nice little forest down there. Also very appropriate for this book. So, and Wolf Brother at that. But yeah, so you can leave an emoji with your comment, or if you just want to let me know that you were here but you don't really have anything to say, you can put an emoji or a few down there. I really love talking to you guys in the comments. It makes me so happy to have this sense of community where we can talk about books and talk about stories. That's kind of the whole reason I do this, is because I love to read and I want more people to talk to about books and stories in general, you know, movies, video games, all of it. So yeah, so I appreciate all of your comments. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Oh, on that note, I will say I may not be answering very many comments this weekend because I am going to be out of state for my brother's graduation and also his girlfriend's graduation because they're graduating together. So, there will be, her family will be there, several people from my family will be there, so I'm going to be quite busy. But I will get to your comments as soon as I can, and I do really appreciate them. So anyway, as I was saying, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you're having a wonderful day or a wonderful night wherever you are, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye! Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rekhyt. Happy birthday to you.